I'm still holding the plastic bouquet. The petals are wilted now, drooping like my hope. It's 9:02 p.m., and Terminal 3 feels like a morgue. The last passengers from Zamboanga filed out hours ago, wheeling their suitcases past me while I stood here like an idiot with a handwritten sign that says, Janely San Pedro. My hands are cramping from gripping it so tight. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting harsh shadows across the empty terminal. Security guards eye me with growing suspicion. A janitor pushes his cart past, collecting the debris of 1,000 departures and arrivals. But not mine. Never mine. Excuse me, sir. The airline staffer approaches me with that look. The one that says she's about to deliver bad news gently. Her uniform is crisp, her smile professional but strained. It's past her shift, I realize. She's staying late to deal with me, the strange foreign man who won't leave. The 4:15 flight from Zamboanga landed on time. All passengers have disembarked. I stare at her. My mouth opens, but nothing comes out. The words echo in the cavernous space around us. All passengers have disembarked. All passengers except the one I came for. She continues, her voice softer now. Perhaps your friend missed the flight? You might want to check with... She was on it. I interrupt. My voice sounds hollow, bouncing off the polished floors and glass walls. She texted me this morning. She said she was nervous but ready. She said she couldn't sleep because she was so excited. The woman's expression shifts from professional courtesy to genuine concern. I'm sorry, sir, but I checked the manifest twice. No passenger by that name boarded the aircraft. The words hit me like a physical blow. No passenger by that name. I stumble backward, searching for something to steady myself against. Find a row of plastic chairs bolted to the floor. Sit down hard. The bouquet falls from my hands, scattering fake daisies across the polished terminal floor. Around me, the airport continues its late-night rhythm. Janitors mop up the day's footprints. Families say their final goodbyes at departure gates. Business travelers rush past with their rolling luggage and important phone calls. And I'm sitting here, a 59-year-old man from Adelaide, wondering how I became such a goddamn fool. The airline staffer lingers for a moment, clearly wanting to help but not knowing how. Sir, is there someone else you can call? Perhaps she took a different flight? I shake my head. Can't form words. She nods sympathetically and walks away, her heels clicking against the marble. I'm alone now with the weight of what's happening. Or what isn't happening. The absence that's louder than any presence could be. How did this start? How does any disaster start? Slowly, then all at once. 3 months ago I was just Marshall Keene, divorced construction supervisor, spending my evenings in an empty house scrolling through my phone like a man drowning in his own spare time. My ex-wife Sarah had taken the dog when she moved to Brisbane. Said she needed a fresh start, somewhere I wouldn't accidentally run into her at the grocery store. My kids called once a week out of obligation, our conversations awkward and brief. How's work, Dad? Fine, son. Good weather lately? Yeah, not bad. The kind of exchanges that fill time without filling the emptiness. I was invisible, forgotten, going through the motions of being alive without actually living. The house felt too big, too quiet, too full of memories I couldn't escape but couldn't quite embrace either. That's when I found that live stream app. Some technology my nephew had mentioned, where people broadcast themselves doing ordinary things while strangers watched and commented. It seemed harmless enough. Better than sitting in front of the television watching reruns of shows I'd seen a dozen times. Most of the streams were what you'd expect. Young people dancing, showing off, asking for tips. But then I found her. Some Filipina girl playing guitar in what looked like a modest bedroom. A window behind her showed tropical plants and power lines. She was singing covers of old American songs. Hotel California, Sweet Caroline. Her voice was sweet, but the connection kept cutting out, pixelating her image, making her words stutter. That's when I noticed the comments rolling by in the chat box. Most were crude, asking for private shows, throwing around crude emojis and demands. But one caught my eye. Beautiful song, 8. You remind me of my favorite teacher. It was signed JSP. Something about the politeness struck me. While other viewers were throwing money emojis and hard-eye faces and increasingly explicit requests, this person was just kind, respectful. I clicked on the profile. Janely San Pedro, 21. Zamboanga City, Philippines. Student. No flashy photos, no OnlyFans links, no cryptocurrency scams. Just a simple profile picture of her in a school uniform, smiling shyly at the camera. She looked so young, so innocent. Nothing like the hardened performers who usually populated these apps. I sent her a message before I could talk myself out of it. I noticed your comment on the stream. You seem different from the others. She replied an hour later. The notification made my phone buzz while I was heating up a frozen dinner. Thank you, sir. I don't usually talk to strangers online, but you seem respectful. Sir. She called me sir from the very beginning. Not daddy, not baby, not any of those other names that made my skin crawl when younger women used them. Just sir. Like I was someone worth respecting. Like I mattered. Like my age was something to honor rather than something to be embarrassed about. What are you studying? I asked. The response came with a photo attached. Her in a classroom, bent over a thick textbook, surrounded by other students. Accounting, sir. I want to help my Lola with her small sorry store. Maybe expand it someday. Another photo followed. Her grandmother's tiny shop. Shelves lined with canned goods, packages of instant noodles, bottles of Coca-Cola. An old woman in a faded floral dress stood behind the counter, counting peso bills with weathered hands. The store couldn't have been more than 8 feet wide, squeezed between a barber shop and a place selling cell phone accessories. This is my dream. Jana Lee wrote. To make enough money so Lola doesn't have to work so hard. She raised me after my parents died. I want to take care of her the way she took care of me. The next few weeks changed everything. We talked every day. She'd send voice messages while walking to school, and I could hear her whole world through the phone. Tricycles puttering past, their engines coughing and sputtering, roosters crowing from hidden backyards, dogs barking, children laughing. The sound of real life happening around her, vibrant and immediate and so different from the sterile quiet of my Adelaide suburb. Her voice was soft, almost whispered, like she was sharing secrets with me. Good morning, Sir Marshall. The sun is so bright today. I hope your day is blessed too. Sir Marshall, I got a high score on my accounting exam. 93%. I wanted to tell someone who would be proud of me. Sir Marshall, it's raining here. Heavy drops on the tin roof of our boarding house. The sound reminds me of your voice somehow, calm and steady. She told me about her classes, her dreams, her fears, how she worried about her grandmother's health, about finding a job after graduation, about whether she was smart enough to succeed in business. She sent photos of her simple life without any embarrassment. Her small room shared with 2 other girls. The communal kitchen where she cooked instant noodles on a hot plate. The view from her window of clotheslines and concrete buildings stretching to the horizon. She never asked for money, not once. When other girls on the app were constantly hinting about phone bills and school fees and family emergencies, Jana Lee just existed. She shared her world without expecting anything in return. That's what hooked me deeper than I'd ever been hooked before. Not her beauty, though she was beautiful in that natural, unfiltered way that social media hadn't yet corrupted. It was her authenticity. Her innocence. The way she made me feel like I was worth talking to, worth sharing her day with, worth caring about. After a month of daily conversations, I started looking forward to waking up. Not because I had anything important to do, but because I knew she'd have sent me a voice message while I slept. Her tomorrow was my today. Her good morning was my good night. We existed in this strange temporal overlap where distance became irrelevant and time zones became just another obstacle to overcome. I mentioned, casually, that I was planning a trip to Southeast Asia. Maybe the Philippines. I'd always wanted to see Palawan, I told her. The beaches looked incredible in photos, like something from a postcard. I've never been to Palawan, she replied, and there was something wistful in her voice. I've never been anywhere really, just here in Zamboanga and once to Davao with my Lola for her doctor appointment. We took a bus, 12 hours each way. I threw up twice. There was longing in her voice, not for money or gifts, but for experience, for life beyond the narrow streets of her neighborhood, for horizons she'd only seen in other people's photos. What if we met somewhere in the middle? I suggested, my heart pounding as I typed the words. I could fly to Manila. Maybe you could take a domestic flight from Zamboanga. We could explore the city together. I could show you places you've never seen. The pause was long. So long I thought the connection had dropped. I stared at my phone screen, watching the typing indicator appear and disappear, appear and disappear. Finally she spoke, and her voice was trembling. "Sir Marshall, I've never been on a plane before. I've never stayed in a hotel. I wouldn't know what to do, what to wear, how to act. I'd embarrass you." "You could never embarrass me," I said quickly. "I'd take care of everything. The ticket, the hotel, everything. You wouldn't have to worry about anything except enjoying yourself." Another pause, longer this time. When she finally responded, her voice was small, uncertain. "Why would you do that for me? I'm nobody special, just a poor girl from Mindanao." The question caught me off guard. Why would I do that? Because I was lonely. Because she made me feel alive again. Because for the first time in years, someone seemed to actually enjoy talking to me. Someone looked forward to my messages, cared about my day, made me feel like I mattered. "Because you're special to me," I said finally, "and everyone deserves to fly at least once. Everyone deserves to see something beautiful." She was quiet for so long I thought I'd scared her off completely. Then, in the smallest voice I'd ever heard from her, "Maybe. I trust you now, Sir Marshall. But I'd be so nervous. What if I disappoint you? You could be covered in mud and I'd still think you're beautiful." I told her, and I meant every word. She laughed. Actually laughed. A sound like bells, like water over stones. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh, and it made my chest warm in a way I'd forgotten was possible. It made me remember what it felt like to make someone happy. The preparations became the best part of my days. I researched flights, hotels, restaurants, created itineraries, booked her ticket. Cebu Pacific, Zamboanga to Manila, arriving at 4:15 p.m. on a Tuesday. The timing was perfect. I'd land from Adelaide 3 hours earlier, giving me time to get settled, to prepare. I sent her money for the ticket plus extra for new clothes and food and whatever else she might need. "I don't need much, sir," she protested in a voice message. "Just enough to look presentable for you. I don't want you to be ashamed of me." "Buy something that makes you happy," I insisted. "Something pretty. Something that makes you feel confident. Something that makes you smile when you see yourself in the mirror." She sent photos from a local mall. SM City, Zamboanga. She looked so out of place among the gleaming storefronts and polished floors, this beautiful girl in simple clothes browsing racks of dresses she'd probably never imagined owning. The blue dress she finally chose was nothing fancy. Simple cotton, modest neckline, falls to just below her knees. But she looked radiant trying it on in the fitting room mirror. "Do you like it, sir? I feel like a different person wearing it. Like someone who belongs in nice places." "You look beautiful." I typed, and meant it. "You look like yourself, just the best version." She sent another photo from the shoe store. Simple black flats, practical but pretty. "I don't know how to walk in high heels," she admitted. "These feel more comfortable, more like me." Then, from a cosmetics counter, holding up a small tube of lipstick. "The lady here taught me how to apply it properly. Do you think it's too much?" It wasn't too much. Nothing about her was too much. She was perfect in her uncertainty, beautiful in her nervousness, completely authentic in her excitement and fear. The night before her flight, we talked for hours. She was lying on her narrow bed in the boarding house, her roommates already asleep. I was in my empty house in Adelaide, dawn breaking outside my window while darkness wrapped around her. "I couldn't sleep," she whispered. "My mind keeps racing. What if I get lost in the airport? What if my English isn't good enough for the immigration officers? What if they ask me questions I don't know how to answer?" I walked her through everything, step by step. How to check in, how to find her gate, what to expect during security screening, how to behave during the flight. "You'll be fine," I assured her. "Your English is perfect, better than most native speakers I know. And I'll be right there at arrivals, holding a sign with your name. You won't be able to miss me." "Don't laugh at me if I look scared getting off the plane," she said. "I've only seen airports in movies. They look so big, so confusing." "I could never laugh at you," I replied. "If anything, I'm the one who should be nervous. What if you take one look at this old Australian and run away? What if you realize you made a mistake?" "Never," she said firmly, and the conviction in her voice made my heart skip. You're kind to me, Sir Marshal. You listen to me. You make me feel important. That's all that matters. We talked about what we'd do together. The restaurants I wanted to take her to, the sights I wanted to show her, Intramuros with its Spanish colonial architecture, the sunset at Manila Bay, maybe a day trip to Tagaytay if she was feeling adventurous. I want to see everything, she said sleepily. I want to remember every moment. Her last message came at 3 a.m. her time, 6 a.m. mine. I was already dressed, already heading to the airport for my own flight. I'm leaving for the airport soon, sir. My hands are shaking, but my heart is full. I'll text you when I land in Manila. Safe travels, beautiful. I can't wait to see your smile in person. That was the last real message I ever received from Janely San Pedro. The last genuine communication before everything unraveled. Before I learned that sometimes the most beautiful lies are the ones we tell ourselves. Now I'm back in this plastic chair, staring at my phone like it holds answers to questions I'm afraid to ask. The screen shows nothing. No texts. No missed calls. No notifications from any of the messaging apps we used. Just the boarding pass confirmation I'd screenshotted weeks ago, mocking me from my photo gallery. Her flight number. Her seat assignment. Her arrival time. All of it meaningless now. All of it evidence of a plan that was never real. I dial her number again. It rings once, twice, then goes straight to voicemail. The generic message. Not even her voice. The subscriber you have dialed cannot be reached. Please try again later. I've been trying again for 7 hours. I open Messenger. My last message to her shows as delivered but not read. Same with WhatsApp. Same with Viber. It's like she vanished into thin air, taking our entire relationship with her. I even checked the livestream app where we first met, but her profile has been deleted, or maybe it never existed at all. A security guard approaches me. Filipino, middle-aged, kind eyes but tired expression. Sir, the terminal is closing soon for cleaning. Do you need assistance? I look up at him. He's probably father to someone like Janely. Someone young and hopeful and trying to make their way in the world. His expression is kind but concerned. I realize I must look pathetic sitting here among the scattered plastic flowers. I was supposed to meet someone, I say. My voice sounds foreign to my own ears. She was on the Zamboanga flight, Flight 5J851, but she wasn't on it. He nods sympathetically. Maybe she missed it, sir. These domestic flights, sometimes people arrive late to the airport. Traffic in Zamboanga can be very bad. Or maybe family emergency. Maybe, I repeat. But even as I say it, I don't believe it. Something cold is spreading through my chest, a certainty I don't want to acknowledge, a truth I'm not ready to face. The security guard lingers, clearly wanting to help but not knowing how. Sir, there's a hotel just across the street. Very nice. Maybe you can rest? Try calling tomorrow? I nod and gather up what's left of my dignity. The scattered flowers go into a trash bin, the bouquet that cost me 50 pesos from a vendor outside, such a small amount of money for such a big gesture. Everything about this trip suddenly feels small, pathetic. A middle-aged man's desperate attempt to buy affection from someone young enough to be his daughter. I walk across the street to the Marriott, the hotel where I booked us adjoining rooms, where I planned to give her space, let her feel comfortable, show her I wasn't some creepy old man with ulterior motives. Where I'd imagined us having breakfast together, planning our day, sharing stories and laughter and the simple pleasure of each other's company. The lobby is marble and gold, intimidating in its luxury. She would have been so impressed, would have taken selfies by the fountain, sent them to her grandmother with captions in Tagalog. Lola, look where I am. See, Sir Marshal is so generous. But she's not here. She was never coming here. And deep down, in a place I'm not ready to examine yet, I'm starting to understand why. 2 days pass like a fever dream. I don't leave the hotel room except to eat, and even then I just order room service. Overpriced sandwiches that taste like cardboard, coffee that's too strong and too bitter. I keep my phone plugged in and beside me at all times, checking it every few minutes. Refreshing our chat conversations, calling her number, nothing changes. The silence gets louder. On the morning of the third day, desperation drives me to do something I swore I wouldn't do. Something that feels like a violation of privacy but also like my last hope. I remembered once, maybe 6 weeks ago, Janely mentioning that she'd lost her phone and had to borrow a friend's to message me. "Sorry for the delay, Sir Marshall. My phone fell in the river when I was helping Lola wash clothes. I'm using my friend Rovalin's phone to talk to you. I'd saved that number in my contacts, just in case, just for emergencies. Now I dig through my phone and find it. Rovalin Mendoza. The name feels foreign on my tongue when I say it aloud. I compose a careful message, trying to sound concerned but not crazy. Not like a stalker or a predator or any of the things I'm suddenly afraid I might be. Hi, this is Marshall, a friend of Janely's. I was supposed to meet her in Manila, but she never arrived. I'm very worried something happened to her. Can you help me contact her?" I stare at the message for 5 minutes before sending it. My thumb hovers over the send button while my heart pounds. This feels like crossing a line, like admitting that something is fundamentally wrong with this entire situation. But I hit send anyway, because the alternative is going home without answers. The response comes within minutes. Fast enough to suggest she was already online, already available. "Sir Marshall. Yes, I remember you. Janely talked about you sometimes." My heart jumps. At least I was real to her. At least she mentioned me to someone. At least I existed in her world beyond our private conversations. "Do you know what happened?" I type quickly, my fingers trembling. She was supposed to fly to Manila on Tuesday, Flight 5J851, but she never arrived at the airport. The typing indicator appears and disappears several times. I can almost see her on the other end, trying to figure out what to say. How much to reveal, whether to lie or tell the truth. Finally, a message comes through that makes my entire world collapse. "Sir, she never went to the airport." I read the words 3 times before they sink in. She never went to the airport. Not missed the flight. Not delayed by traffic. Not held up by an emergency. She never went. Another message follows immediately. She went to her boyfriend's place in the city instead. He's an engineer there. Works for a construction company. They've been together for like 8 months now. Boyfriend. Engineer. 8 months. The words float on my screen like accusations. Like evidence of a crime I didn't know was being committed. A third message appears. The final nail in the coffin of my delusions. "Sorry, Poe, sir. She said you're nice but old. She felt bad lying to you, but she needed the money for her tuition and for her Lola's medicine. Nice but old." The words echo in my head like a mantra, like a judgment, like a sentence being passed down from a judge I'll never see. Nice but old. Nice but old. Nice but old. I set the phone down carefully on the hotel room desk, as if it might explode, as if the screen might crack under the weight of what I've just learned. Then I lie back on the perfectly made bed, stare at the ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead, and let the full magnitude of my stupidity wash over me. The air conditioning hums. Traffic noise filters up from the street below. Somewhere in this city, Janely is with her boyfriend, the engineer, the man her own age who lives in her world, who doesn't have to send money from across the ocean to feel important, who doesn't need to buy plane tickets to earn a moment of her time. I wonder if she told him about me. If they laughed about the lonely old Australian who thought he was special. If they spent my money on dinner dates and movies and all the things young couples do when they're in love and someone else is paying for it. I don't scream. I don't throw things or punch walls or send angry messages demanding my money back. I don't call her names or threaten to report her or do any of the things that angry, humiliated men do when they discover they've been played. I just exist in that hotel room until checkout time, replaying every conversation we ever had, every voice message she sent while supposedly walking to school. "Good morning, Sir Marshall. I hope your day is blessed." Was she walking to meet him when she recorded that? Was he waiting for her in some coffee shop while she performed concern for my well-being? Every photo she shared of her simple life, the boarding house room, the grandmother's store, the blue dress she tried on with such apparent joy. Was he in the background somewhere, hidden just out of frame? Coaching her on what to say, what to show, how to keep the lonely old man interested and generous? Every time she called me sir, was she laughing inside? Every expression of gratitude, every moment of apparent vulnerability, Every whispered confession about her dreams and fears. How much of it was calculation? How much was performance? The worst part isn't the money, though the money stings. A few thousand Australian dollars that I can afford to lose, but that represents weeks of her acting, months of careful manipulation. The worst part is how perfectly she played the role. The shy, respectful student who'd never been anywhere. The girl who was nervous about flying but trusted me enough to try. The granddaughter working to support her Lola's struggling store. The innocent who made me feel worldly and generous and important. How much of it was true? Any of it? The blue dress she tried on, looking so radiant and uncertain in the fitting room mirror. Do you like it, sir? I feel like a different person wearing it. Maybe she was a different person wearing it. Maybe she was putting on a costume, becoming the character she knew I wanted her to be. The girl who would be grateful for my attention, impressed by my generosity, excited by the adventure I could provide. And maybe I was so desperate to be needed, to matter to someone, to feel important and valued and desired, that I couldn't see the performance for what it was. Maybe I chose not to see it because the alternative was admitting that nobody could love me for free. That at 59, divorced and lonely and increasingly invisible, I had nothing to offer except money and the pathetic gratitude of a man who'd been forgotten by everyone who once claimed to care about him. I think about her boyfriend, the engineer. Someone her own age, someone who speaks her language, someone who lives in her world and understands her references and shares her cultural context. Someone who doesn't have to explain himself constantly, doesn't have to bridge a gap of continents and decades and completely different life experiences. Someone who can take her on dates without buying plane tickets, who can hold her hand without scheduling international travel, who can love her without needing to prove his worth through constant displays of financial generosity. I wonder if she told him about me. If she described the old Australian who sent her money and attention and desperate affection. If they planned this together, worked out the details, decided how long to string me along and how much money they could extract before the whole thing collapsed. Or if she kept me secret, compartmentalized me into a part of her life he never knew about. Just another income stream, another lonely man to manage and manipulate and eventually discard. But then I remember her voice in those late-night conversations. The way she said my name like it meant something. The genuine warmth when she asked about my day, my work, my life in Adelaide. The small details she remembered about stories I'd told her. The way she'd laugh at my terrible jokes and ask follow-up questions about things I'd mentioned in passing. Was all of that fake? Could someone fake that level of caring, that degree of attention and interest, for months without slipping up once? Could a 21-year-old girl in Zamboanga be that accomplished an actress, that skilled a manipulator? I'll never know. And maybe that's the real cruelty of the whole thing. Not knowing which moments were real and which were performance. Not knowing if the girl I fell for ever existed at all, or if she was just a character created to separate me from my money and my dignity. Not knowing whether to hate her for lying or pity her for needing to lie. Not knowing whether I'm the victim or the fool or both. I check out of the hotel on Thursday morning and fly to Palawan as originally planned. El Nido is exactly as beautiful as the photos promised. Limestone cliffs rising from turquoise water like ancient cathedral spires. Hidden lagoons accessible only by kayak. Beaches that stretch for miles without a footprint, without a building, without any evidence that the modern world exists. The kind of natural beauty that makes you understand why people write poems and paint pictures and spend their life savings just to see it once. But I see it all through a haze of numbness. Go through the motions of being a tourist. Take the island hopping tours. Eat at the beachfront restaurants. Watch the sunset from my hotel balcony with a San Miguel beer in my hand. But it's like watching everything through thick glass. Present but not participating. Seeing but not feeling. The other tourists see an older man enjoying his retirement, maybe recently widowed or divorced, treating himself to a solo adventure. They don't see the invisible wound, the way something inside me cracked and hasn't quite healed. They don't see me checking my phone compulsively, hoping for some message that explains everything, that makes it all make sense, that restores some dignity to the whole humiliating episode. I delete the livestream app on my second day in El Nido. Then I block Jane Lee's number, delete all our chat history across every platform we used, remove all the photos she sent me from my phone's gallery. I try to erase every digital trace of Jane Lee San Pedro from my life, to delete her like she was just another contact I no longer needed. But I can't delete the memories. Can't unlearn the way her voice sounded when she was nervous or excited or sleepy. Can't forget the photo of her grandmother counting peso bills behind the counter of that tiny store. Can't stop wondering if the grandmother was real, if any of it was real, if there was even one genuine moment in our entire relationship. I spend a week walking the beaches of El Nido alone, processing what happened to me, trying to understand not just what she did but why I let her do it. Why I was so eager to believe, so willing to ignore the obvious red flags, so desperate for connection that I confused transaction with affection. Other tourists see a man enjoying solitude. They don't see someone trying to figure out how he became so invisible to the world that he had to buy attention from a stranger on the internet. How he became so disconnected from real relationships that he mistook performed interest for genuine caring. How he became the kind of person who falls in love with a voice message and calls it intimacy. Slowly, though, something shifts. I start sleeping better, eating without forcing myself, actually noticing the beauty around me instead of just photographing it for proof that I was there. I realize that somewhere in the process of mourning this fake relationship, I've stopped being angry at Jane Lee. How can I be angry at a 21-year-old kid for doing what she thought she had to do? Maybe she really did need money for school. Maybe her grandmother really does need medicine. Maybe she looked at this lonely old Australian sending her messages and saw an opportunity she couldn't pass up, and chanced to solve some problems, to ease some financial stress, to help her family in a way that didn't require her to sacrifice her body or her dignity. Just her honesty. Just her authenticity. Just the small matter of making someone fall in love with a person who didn't exist. That doesn't make the lying right, but it makes it understandable, forgivable, even. She's young and poor and trying to survive in a world that doesn't care about young, poor people. She saw a chance to make some money from someone who could afford to lose it, and she took it. She hurt me, yes, but she didn't set out to hurt me. She set out to help herself, and I was collateral damage in her survival strategy. What I'm angry at is myself. For being so desperate to matter to someone that I ignored every red flag, every warning sign, every moment of incongruity that should have made me pause and ask questions. For being so lonely that I confused kindness with love, attention with affection, performance with authenticity. For thinking that at 59, divorced and invisible and increasingly irrelevant, I could buy my way into someone's heart with plane tickets and hotel rooms and the pathetic gratitude of a man who'd been forgotten by everyone who once claimed to care about him. For believing that love could be so simple, so transactional. For imagining that a beautiful young woman on the other side of the world would be genuinely interested in a broken-down construction supervisor with gray hair and crow's feet and nothing to offer except money and desperate attention. For thinking that youth and beauty and hope would naturally gravitate toward age and loneliness and the quiet desperation of a man trying to convince himself that his best years weren't already behind him. But there's something else too, something I didn't expect to feel. Gratitude. For 6 weeks, Jane Lee made me feel alive again, made me look forward to waking up, to checking my messages, to sharing my day with someone who seemed to care about the mundane details of my existence. She made me feel interesting, generous, important. She gave me a reason to get out of bed, to shower and dress, and engage with the world instead of just surviving it. The girl I fell for may not have been real, but the feeling was real. The hope was real. The sense of purpose and connection and possibility was real, even if she wasn't. Maybe that's worth something. Maybe that's worth the money and the humiliation and the painful lesson about my own gullibility and desperation. Maybe for 6 weeks I got to experience what it would feel like to matter to someone again, to be needed and wanted and appreciated. And maybe that's more than I had any right to expect at this stage of my life. Maybe that's enough. I think about the version of Jane Lee I created in my head. The shy student who called me sir and worried about disappointing me. The granddaughter working to support her Lola. The girl who'd never flown before but trusted me enough to try. That person was real to me, even if she never existed in the world. She lives in my memory as clearly as anyone I've ever actually met. And maybe that's enough too. Maybe we're all falling in love with versions of people that don't quite exist. Maybe every relationship is built on some foundation of mutual delusion. Some agreement to see each other as better or more interesting or more compatible than we actually are. Maybe Jane Lee was just more honest about the transaction than most people are. She gave me what I needed, and I gave her what she needed, and when the trade was complete, she disappeared. Clean, simple. No messy breakup, no drawn-out decline, no gradual realization that we were incompatible. Just a clean cut. Like a blade through silk. Maybe that was a kindness. I'm back in Adelaide now, 8 months later. Spring is coming to South Australia, and the jacarandas are starting to bloom purple along my street. I still live in the same house, still have the same routines, but something fundamental has changed inside me. Something I can't quite name but can definitely feel. I don't wait anymore. Not for messages that won't come, not for people who won't show up, not for life to happen to me. I've become active instead of passive, engaged instead of withdrawn. I've started cooking again. Real meals from scratch, not just microwave dinners eaten standing over the kitchen sink. Roast chicken with vegetables, pasta with sauce I make myself, fish from the local market, prepared with herbs from a garden I've started tending. The simple pleasure of feeding myself well feels like a revolutionary act after years of barely bothering to stay alive. I joined a hiking group for people over 50. Every Saturday morning we meet at different trailheads around Adelaide and walk together through the hills. We talk about books, politics, grandchildren, travel plans, normal conversations with normal people living normal lives. I've made friends, actual friends who know my name and remember details about my life and invite me to their barbecues. Started volunteering at a local literacy center, teaching English to recent immigrants. Turns out I'm good at it, patient, kind, understanding. The skills that made me vulnerable to Janely's deception also make me a decent teacher. The irony isn't lost on me. My students are mostly women. Afghan refugees learning to navigate Australian bureaucracy, Vietnamese grandmothers helping their grandchildren with homework, Syrian mothers trying to communicate with their children's teachers. They call me sir, like Janely did, but without calculation, with genuine respect for someone taking time to help them build better lives. They bring me homemade food, invite me to their children's birthday parties, include me in their extended family celebrations. They give me what Janely only pretended to give: authentic gratitude, real connection, honest affection. My phone buzzes sometimes with notifications from dating apps I downloaded but haven't used. Messages from women my age, women who are real and available, and actually interested in meeting someone. Divorced teachers and widowed nurses and retired accountants looking for companionship. Women with gray hair and laugh lines and stories of their own. Women who live in my world, who understand my references, who wouldn't need me to explain cultural context or bridge generational gaps. Women who could love me without needing plane tickets or hotel rooms or constant proof of my financial generosity, but I'm not ready for that yet. Maybe I never will be again, and that's okay. I've learned something important about myself these past months. I was looking for someone to complete me, to fill the empty spaces left by my divorce, my distance from my children, my general sense of being forgotten by the world. But you can't ask another person to carry that weight. Especially not a 21-year-old girl on the other side of the world who has her own life, her own struggles, her own story that has nothing to do with your loneliness. The empty spaces are mine to fill. Mine to understand, mine to accept or change as I see fit. I've started having dinner with my neighbor Margaret, a widow in her 70s who lost her husband 2 years ago. We eat on her back porch and talk about gardening, local politics, the books we're reading. She's sharp and funny and opinionated in ways that keep me engaged. Sometimes we just sit in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint her garden golden. She doesn't need anything from me except my company, and I don't need anything from her except the same. It's the most honest relationship I've had in years. I called my son last week, not because it was our scheduled weekly check-in, but because I wanted to hear his voice. We talked for 2 hours about his work, his girlfriend, his plans to visit Adelaide for Christmas. Really talked, not just exchanged the usual pleasantries and obligations. He seemed surprised by my engagement, my genuine interest in his life. "You sound different, Dad," he said. More present. That's exactly right. I don't hate Janely San Pedro. I don't even blame her, not really. She saw an opportunity and she took it. She told me what I wanted to hear, became who I needed her to be, and disappeared when it suited her purpose. That's not evil. That's just survival. What's evil is the system that makes young women feel like they have to perform for older men's fantasies just to get by. What's evil is the loneliness that drives men like me to mistake transaction for connection, to confuse purchased attention with genuine caring. What's evil is the way the internet has made it so easy to buy the illusion of love from people who have no choice but to sell it. I walk past Adelaide Airport sometimes on my way to the hiking trails in the Adelaide Hills. See families reuniting at arrivals, couples embracing after long separations, people holding signs for friends and relatives and business partners. Real people meeting real people, with real reasons and real feelings and real shared history. I used to feel bitter watching those scenes. The genuine joy, the authentic tears, the unperformed affection. It reminded me of what I'd been denied, what I'd paid for but never received. Now I just feel grateful that I learned the difference before it was too late. Before I became the kind of man who spends his retirement chasing digital ghosts, buying attention from people who see him only as a source of income. Before I lost myself completely in the fantasy of being loved by someone who couldn't love me back because she never really knew me at all. I have a photo on my phone from that day at Manila Airport. I didn't realize I'd taken it until weeks later, when I was deleting everything connected to Janely. It's a terrible photo, blurry and poorly framed. The arrivals board showing flight 5J851 as arrived. The empty chairs where I sat for 7 hours. A custodian mopping the floor around scattered plastic flower petals. You can see part of my handwritten sign in the corner of the frame. Janely San Pedro. The name of someone who never existed, at least not in the way I needed her to exist. I kept that photo. Not as a reminder of my humiliation, but as evidence of my transformation. The man who took that photo was desperate, gullible, so hungry for connection that he mistook performance for authenticity. The man looking at it now understands the difference, understands that love isn't something you can buy, attention isn't something you can purchase, and mattering to someone isn't something you can achieve through financial generosity alone. She promised to meet me at Manila Airport, but she never got on the plane. She never intended to get on the plane. The ticket I bought was just another prop in an elaborate performance, another detail to make her story more believable, more compelling, more likely to extract money and sympathy and desperate affection from a lonely man who should have known better. But maybe that was exactly what needed to happen. Maybe I needed to be abandoned at that airport, surrounded by the echoes of other people's real reunions, holding a sign with a fake name, waiting for someone who was never coming. Maybe I needed to hit bottom that hard, that publicly, that completely, before I could start the long climb back to something resembling self-respect. She never got on the plane. But that day, I finally got off mine, the one I'd been flying in my head for too long, circling endlessly around my own emptiness, never quite landing anywhere real. The one that kept me suspended between hope and despair, between fantasy and reality, between the person I was and the person I thought I could buy my way into becoming. She promised to meet me at the airport. But it was me I needed to meet, the real me, not the generous benefactor or the lonely romantic or the pathetic old man sending money to pretty girls on the internet. Just me, Marshall Keene, 59 years old, divorced construction supervisor from Adelaide, flawed and lonely and sometimes desperate, yes, but also capable of growth, capable of change, capable of learning from his mistakes without being destroyed by them, capable of building real relationships with real people who live in his real world. I finally met that man in Terminal 3 at Manila Airport, sitting alone among scattered plastic flowers at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, holding a sign for someone who was never coming. And despite everything, despite the humiliation and the financial loss and the complete collapse of my romantic delusions, I liked him. I liked his resilience, his ability to survive disappointment, his willingness to keep hoping even when hope seemed foolish. I liked his capacity for forgiveness, both of others and of himself. I liked his quiet determination to do better, to be better, to learn from this disaster and build something meaningful from the wreckage. She never got on the plane, but I finally landed, and that, in the end, was the journey I really needed to take.